It's time for The Verdict. The Verdict is a lively discussion of current events and legal issues pertinent to Oklahomans. The Verdict is hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. It's time for The Verdict.
Again, and welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here every Wednesday night to discuss topical issues, sometimes legal issues, sometimes not. And Kent, we have a good show lined up tonight.
We do. We have a longtime friend of mine, all the way from high school, who's going to be talking to us about the Jim Thorpe Association and the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. Lynn Draper is the boss of those organizations, or at least charged with being the boss. Let me ask you a trivia question.
Okay.
2 trivia questions. What does Watho-Huck mean?
I'm sorry to say I don't know.
That is Jim Thorpe's Sac and Fox Indian name.
I need to work on my Sac and Fox.
It's needs some attention. Who is the first president of what is now the National Football League?
That I know. That was Jim Thorpe.
That's Jim Thorpe. And we're going to be talking a lot about Jim Thorpe tonight. And we'll be visiting with Lynn and also about the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame.
Look forward to it. Lynn Draper on The Verdict coming up next.
Tune in every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock for Oklahoma Hoops here on KSBI.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The best skiers and snowboarders in the world get set to do battle in the baddest course ever invented. Jeep King of the Mountains, live.
Sunday, January 30th, 8 p.m.
Well, hi there. I'm Bob Eubanks here for the $250,000 Great American Home Remodeling Sweepstakes. Enter instantly by just calling the number on your screen and telling the operator which prize you want to win. Choose new insulating windows and entry doors, or a beautifying kitchen refacing, or a vinyl siding installation, or exterior coating finish. And no matter what prize you choose, you'll be eligible to win one of many other great prizes, or even the $25,000 grand prize. This sweepstakes is giving away new windows and entry doors on 6 homes, 6 complete kitchen refacings, and 6 insulating vinyl siding applications or exterior coatings. Now you could win one of these prizes or another great prize, even $25,000 in cash. To enter the sweepstakes, just call the number on your screen. The only qualification is you must be a homeowner. So call right now and instantly enter the Pacesetter Great American Home Remodeling Sweepstakes. And tell them Bob Eubanks told you to call.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers, as always, and Kent's going to introduce our guest.
Tonight, we're really pleased to have Lynn Draper, who is the president of the Jim Thorpe Association and is the boss man of the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. Lynn is a longtime Oklahoma City resident. He is also the president of the National College Football Awards Association, which we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. Lynn attended the University of Oklahoma, is married, has 8 children, 7 boys and 1 girl, and this is his first visit to The Verdict. Lynn, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
We're pleased you're here.
You know, this was actually Kent's idea for a show, but I'm thrilled about it because Lynn and I go back 20 years. I know not as long as you do, the two of you do, but I've had a chance to watch this Jim Thorpe Association literally grow from a handful of 3 or 4 people into the organization is now that does so much, not only in Oklahoma City, but around the state. And Lynn, it's been really fun to watch it grow. So not for my benefit, but our audience's benefit, why don't you explain what the Jim Thorpe Association is today in 2005?
Well, today the Jim Thorpe Association is a nonprofit charity that's multifaceted, does a lot of different projects and things, serves lots of purposes. Primarily it's to encourage excellence in sports and academics, health, fitness, and of course preserve our sports heritage.
Well, Jim Thorpe, we talked about a little bit in the opening. Most Oklahoma residents will be familiar with his name, but I think it wouldn't hurt to remind Mick and me and our viewers about Jim Thorpe's significant connection to Oklahoma.
Well, of course, Jim Thorpe was a member of the Sac and Fox Indian tribe. He was born in Oklahoma and down here on the North Canadian River, between Shawnee and Prague. He went on to become what we think is the greatest all-around athlete in the history of the world. Most historians real sports historians look at the accomplishments of Jim Thorpe, and no other athlete has done all the things in the various areas that he has done, from being a 2-time All-American football player in college to going on to play professional football, professional baseball, and win the gold medals in the decathlon and pentathlon in the Olympics. No other athletes ever come that close. So overall, Jim Thorpe is the greatest all-around athlete in history. And of course, being born in Oklahoma and always identifying Oklahoma as his home, he's been very important to this state.
I know two of the most prominent things that you do as an association is select the Jim Thorpe Award winner, which is a nationwide award. You honor the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame and their induction. I know we're going to get into that some in the next segment. But one of the things I think you're most proud about is the Brightpath Youth Program. Why don't you let people know a little bit more about that?
Brightpath, of course, was the English translation of Jim Thorpe's Indian name. And that is the program that basically our youth program. All the things that we do with children from 18 on down fall under the Brightpath category. Part of that is our Brightpath Club program in the Oklahoma City elementary schools. It's in all the primarily 4th and 5th grades in all the public schools in the Oklahoma City Public School District. And kids participate in health and fitness programs and in the arts. And of course, they get certificates for accomplishing certain things in the Brightpath Club. They culminate that each year with the what we call our Children's Challenge, which is in effect an Olympic-style track meet for the kids in the 4th and 5th grades. It's about 400 kids show up out there, and they do it, and it's quite a sight.
Well, how long has it been going on, the Brightpath program?
We've started this thing. It's been almost 10 years now.
There's a member of the Thorpe family, isn't there, still involved in the Jim Thorpe Association?
Actually, there are several members. The Jim Thorpe, 3 of Jim Thorpe's, the living sons of Jim Thorpe, Bill, Jack, and Richard, of course, are all involved with our executive council. Richard is vice president of the organization and on the board of directors. The girls, Gail and Grace, of course, they're not in great health right now. Gail lives up in Yale, and Gail lives in Yale, and Grace is in Claremore. So they're all involved. They try to attend our functions, and so yes, the Thorpe family is still very much involved.
How did the Thorpe Association become statewide? I mean, what was the impetus upon moving it to a larger venue and then just become an Oklahoma City area group?
Well, of course, part of the reason we started this whole thing was back in 1986 when the oil boom had gone bust and the banks were going bankrupt and things were kind of in the pits. A talk show host by the name of Ed Sawson had an idea of wanting to promote something that would be positive. And so he and I sat down one day and came up with a sports award because the state is, sports is such a big part of our culture and our history. And we worked out the basic idea of having the Jim Thorpe Award to generate something positive that would bring positive national attention to the state and be something that everybody can take a little pride in, and kind of show, hey, that Oklahoma can do something that anybody else, that other states can do. The other major awards at that time were all in places like New York and Houston and Dallas. And so we wanted to show that Oklahoma could do this as well as anyone else. And the award has really stepped up and become one of the major college football awards in the country.
Let me ask you a question about something I alluded to with Mick in the beginning, and that is that Jim Thorpe was the president as a very young man and still a player, I guess, in what ended up becoming the National Football League. What can you tell us about that?
Well, that's true. Actually, they had a meeting of the various football teams.
And this was approximately when?
In 1920.
Okay.
And they had
that's close enough.
Yeah. And they had the meeting. Actually, it was in a garage, and so it was pretty informal in those days. And so Thorpe was elected the president of what became a couple of years later the National Football League. Of course, he was at that time was the the primary public figure, the person that really put professional football on the map.
Now, in order of his awards or accomplishments, he played college football first and was an All-American. When did the Olympics come in chronological order with his professional baseball and his professional football?
Well, he was in the, of course, he was a Walter Camp All-American football player at Carlisle Indian School in 1911 and 1912. He went to the Olympics.
And that's in Carlisle, Pennsylvania?
Right.
Okay.
And then he went to the Olympics in Stockholm, Sweden in 1912 and won gold medals in both the pentathlon and decathlon in the Olympics. So shortly after he came back from those Olympics, some reporter had reported that he had played semi-pro baseball in North Carolina in the summer years, which a lot of other great athletes did at that time. But the other athletes played under assumed names, and Thorpe didn't. He played under his own name, and they ruled that was professional, and therefore he was not eligible for those medals. They took the medals away from him. Many years later, they were given back. But after that, after the 1912 situation, and then he went into playing professional baseball and professional football, and played on, I think, right up to 1928.
Those first NFL franchises cost $500 at that meeting in 1920.
Wow.
It's come a long way. We're visiting with Lynne Draper of the Jim Thorpe Association. We're going to hear more about the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame and the Jim Thorpe Award coming up next on The Verdict.
Join us all season long as Jefferson Pilot Sports brings you 2005 SEC Hoops action. 6 SEC teams qualified for the NCAA tournament last season, and the league is as strong as ever. Nowhere else will you find the high-flying, heart-pounding, in-your-face, above-the-rim action of the SEC. JP Sports brings you all the finest players, coaches, and fans right into your home every Wednesday and Saturday. It's a season of SEC action you won't want to miss, and you can catch it all right here, all season long.
American Express Tax and Business Services. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. American Express Tax and Business Services. In Oklahoma City, the phone number is 405-843-5311.
Imagine if you could reduce the interest rate on your credit cards by half or more.
Interest on our cards used to be 21 to 23%.
They were impossible to pay down.
Get your unsecured debt paid off in 3 to 5 years.
Before Cambridge, it would have taken me 15 to 20 years to get out of debt. With Cambridge, I'll be debt-free in 4.5 to 5 years.
Reduce your monthly payments.
I couldn't keep up with my payments anymore. Cambridge lowered my monthly payments so that I'm able to manage it.
Get cash back through the Good Payer program just by paying your bills on time.
We've gotten 3 checks so far. One for $230, another for $135.
And the last one was $150, just for paying on time every month.
Cambridge Credit Counseling is a non-profit service that work with you and your creditors to reduce your monthly payments. It's a fresh start.
A phone call, a couple of faxes, and we were done.
It's not like bankruptcy, which hurts your credit. Cambridge is the solution we've been praying for.
Give Cambridge Credit Counseling a call. Find out how good it feels to be debt-free.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers. This week our guest is Lynne Draper of the Jim Thorpe Association. We'll discuss the Jim Thorpe Award coming up on February 8th. It is given annually to the nation's top college defensive back. Give us a little background on how that award started and then how it's progressed today to become really one of the top awards in college football.
Well, it was started in 1986 and started to honor the best defensive back, and it was started by a talk show host by the name of Ed Salson and myself, and we had a group of other people who were involved and to get it going. We really didn't expect it to take off and become as big as it was, but we really didn't have any idea in the beginning how much impact it could have. But it was organized, and Jack, in fact, former TV personality by the name of Jack Ogle, was the first chairman of that of the Jim Thorpe Association and the Jim Thorpe Award. It's, we have a selection process each year that starts out with a review of all the preseason All-Americans, and there's a point system that we use to do that, develop our preseason nominees. Then there's a selection, a screening committee that follows the players all the way through the season.
So discuss that screening committee a little bit. How is it selected? I don't need to know individual names, but who's picked to be on the screening committee?
Well, the screening committee is made up of members of the Jim Thorpe Association. Okay. So these guys are people mostly right here in Oklahoma City, but they contact the sports information directors, they coaches, they go to the games, they interview the players. They take it very seriously. They do a lot of research to follow these people through the season. And then they narrow it down to the top 3. So when we finally, they name the top 3 finalists, and then those names go out to a national selection committee made up of former coaches, people like Darrell Royal at Texas. Bud Wilkinson used to be on that originally. Billy Vessels was on that. Of course, Billy's gone now. But that's the type of individual that's across the country, sports media people, that are people like Chris Fowler, the ESPN's on that committee. So a large number of folks that actually vote on those 3 to determine the winner. And of course, the winner is announced on the ESPN College Football Award Show. Then we have a formal presentation in Oklahoma City.
It must have been very satisfying once you created the award, when you saw universities creating brochures specifically highlighting their players, hoping they could win the award. In other words, they were starting to try to publicize their players in hopes that their athlete might win the Jim Thorpe Award. And what you had created in a very small way had become very, very large and important to a lot of people.
We were amazed when it started off to realize how much the awards meant, and of course, we kind of filled a gap at the time. There was the Heisman Trophy for the overall player. There was the Outland for the interior lineman and Lombardi. The Butkus Award had started the year before for the linebackers. So most of the major college football awards or playing positions were covered, except defensive backs. So we kind of filled a gap, and when we did, that put a package together that became something that could be promoted, and John Hadley, a writer for the Sporting News, picked up on that, and the first thing, just almost immediately, we had the Jim Thorpe on the cover of their football annuals. The media departments of the various schools started picking that up and really promoting it. So it was really surprising how rapidly the Jim Thorpe Association and the Jim Thorpe Award started getting national recognition, and it was a lot of fun.
I know you can't name them all, but some of the more prominent winners, and of course I know Dion Sanders was a finalist one year and then he won it the next year, and who else might people recognize?
Oh, Dion Sanders, of course, was one of the first winners. The first one was Thomas Everett from Baylor, who has past couple of years has presented the award on the ESPN show. Mark Carrier was an outstanding player and is now a coach at Arizona. Of course, we've had 3 Oklahoma players win it: Ricky Dixon and Roy Williams and Derek Strait. Won the award. So it's been some outstanding players and that have gone on, and everyone has gone on into the NFL. Most of them have had good, strong records in the NFL. So we're pretty proud of our selection process and of the people who've won the award.
Just in a general way, describe the criteria that the selection committee uses to come up with the final 3. What things are looked at? You indicated, I think, that the players are interviewed.
Yes.
How does that play into whether they make the final 3 or not?
Well, we started out feeling like the awards ought to represent more than just the outstanding athlete, that it ought to include some other factors. So our group looks at it from the standpoint of athletic performance, their performance on the field for that year, because it is an annual award, and character. So the character aspect.
On and off the field.
Yes. If some young man out there can't maintain a good image, we feel like these guys are role models. They project an image, and they affect an awful lot of young people, because sports heroes are the heroes of the day. That's what the ones that young people look at are the sports figures, and they have a tremendous impact. And a lot of them don't realize how much impact they have on young people. So we felt like that it's very important to have character included as part of that criteria.
Let me change the subject a little bit, and let's get to something that I know my co-host Mick knows a lot about, and that's the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame, because I'll bring that up. He won't, but he was instrumental in getting that started here in Oklahoma. Tell us about the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. What's its purpose? Where is it located? What does it do? What does it contain? Who are its members? All of that.
Wow, it covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Yes, and our mayor did have a lot to do with the beginning of it. He's the guy who instigated it and actually the motivating factor that created the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. 1986.
Okay.
Mick
I thought you were still in high school in 1986.
Mick started that the same year we started the Thorpe Award. And a couple of years later, we got involved together with it, and I started helping him with the banquets, and then in 1989, we transferred the operation of the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame to the Jim Thorpe Association, and it's been part of the association ever since.
What's the purpose of the Hall of Fame?
Well, primarily to honor the great sports figures that we have in this state, which are second to none, frankly, and to preserve the sports heritage that has been such an important part of Oklahoma's culture, and to provide a focus and facility where we can have some impact on young people and use our sports figures as role models and examples for young people.
You actually have a building now
Yes.
to house the association. Where is that located?
Yes, we have a building now at 4040 North Lincoln, just about a mile north of the state capitol. We purchased the building about a year and a half ago, and been in the process of doing some fundraising to renovate the place and bring it up to make it a first-class, state-of-the-art museum and Hall of Fame. We are in the process at this point of collecting memorabilia and archives, because we want it not only to be a place where people can come look and see the memorabilia, but also have that be a historical research center. And we've already had several. In fact, there was a gentleman by the name of Bill Crawford that has recently released a book about Jim Thorpe, who did part of his research there. So we wanted this to be more than just a walk-through museum. It's got to be a research facility also.
And although it's not necessarily ready for the general public to just start coming in the masses, but I know that's your hope, but you are gathering up stuff. You have collections from Allie Reynolds, collections from Jim Thorpe. I know you were telling me it's Susie Maxwell Burning, who was a two-time U.S. Women's Open Golf Championship. She sent her clubs that she used to win that tournament. What you see is retiring athletes looking for a depository, for lack of a better term, of some of their memorabilia, somewhere that's going to take care of it, somewhere that will be responsible with it and preserve it, and that's what one of the services that your organization provides.
Exactly. The the sports figures we have want their history preserved, but they want to be sure it's done right. And we've been fortunate enough to have some very unique items already brought in. You mentioned some of them. There's something that came in this year was from Tom Churchill, who was inducted. Was an Olympic athlete, and he was in the decathlon in the 1928 Olympics, and he had a commemorative wooden shoe signed by all of the. Well, it was a wooden shoe because the Olympics were in Amsterdam, and was signed by all the U.S. team. One of those was Johnny Weissmuller, who was the first Tarzan.
Yeah, that's right. We are out of time, and this went so quickly. But Lynn, congratulations on all you've done. Quickly, the Jim Thorpe Award is coming up February
the 8th.
And if people want tickets, they should?
Sure, can call the Jim Thorpe Association at 644-6037.
And the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame Awards are now given every August, so people might make plans if they'd like to start being more involved in the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame or the Jim Thorpe Association to watch for releases about that event, and that's every August in Oklahoma City. Lynn Draper, thanks for all you're doing for Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and the Jim Thorpe Association.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Lynn.
Kent and I'll be back. A final word after this.
Heritage Hall, an independent college preparatory school. Here we celebrate our scientists, our athletes, our mathematicians, and our future artists.
Our students love to learn. A welcoming school for children aged 3 through grade 12. We are a community. We are a family. We are Heritage Hall.
Like Big 12 basketball, KSBI has more of the Big 12 coaches shows than any other Oklahoma television station. It all tips off at 6:30 every Tuesday night right here on KSBI. Family television for Oklahoma.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
An important message for users of the drug Vioxx.
The FDA warns that those who take Vioxx may double their risk of heart attack, stroke, or even sudden cardiac death.
On September 30th, 2004, the largest prescription drug recall in history was issued for Vioxx. However, researchers have suggested that Vioxx should have been withdrawn years earlier.
Merck, the multi-billion-dollar manufacturer of Vioxx, may be to blame for your heart attack or stroke. You could be entitled to a large cash award, but you need to act now to preserve your legal rights.
The law firm of Robert Goldwater and their affiliates know how to make companies like Merck pay for their mistakes. Call for a free case review today. Get the justice and financial compensation you deserve.
Have you or a family member been the victim of a Vioxx-caused heart attack or stroke? Call the law firm of Robert Goldwater right now. Get the compensation the law entitles you to. Call 1-800-421-5200. That's 1-800-421-5200.
Hello, I'm Jason Winder, Vice President of Sound Mortgage Group.
Time for your mortgage to start working for you instead of you working for your mortgage. On Sound Mortgage's Payment Select loan with your good credit, rates start at 1%. Every month you get the choice and flexibility of 4 different payment options, from interest only to paying off your loan in 15 to 30 years. Homeowners call 800-383-9552. That's 800-383-9552. We're Sound Mortgage's Payment Select 4-payment option loan.
We're back on The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers, wrapping up a show in which we learned more about the Jim Thorpe Association and the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame with our guest, Lynn Draper.
Well, and thanks to you for your involvement in the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame back in 1986. That's turned out to be quite an endeavor.
Well, it's fun to see how it's evolved through the years.
Well, it really is, and I can't wait, frankly, for the Hall of Fame to get open completely with the memorabilia that's there from all the many athletes that have become members of that Hall of Fame, because they are certainly names that our viewers will be familiar with, and I know I'll love to go out and watch it and look at it, and I'm sure our viewers will as well. Yeah, we thank Lynn. He does an awful lot for promoting the Jim Thorpe Association, and in the process, the state of Oklahoma, and putting a really good, positive spin on things that happen here that spins beyond our borders and across the nation. That Jim Thorpe Award, of course, is, as you well know better than I, is a nationally recognized and well thought of award given with consistency and with integrity. And up to now, I don't think we've had very many Jim Thorpe Award winners that have been any kind of embarrassment later in their subsequent...
Cross your fingers.
Cross your fingers, yeah. It's never too late. Dion's still playing. Next week, we're going to change the subject considerably, and we're going to talk about speaking up for kids. We're going to have Ann Roberts, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy, visiting with us about what's going on in the state of Oklahoma about protecting our littlest citizens, the children.
We like to pass along information about websites that people might be able to find more information on our guest. The Jim Thorpe Association's website is jimthorpeassoc.org. And of course, you can always go to The Verdict's website for more information about this show or to suggest a future topic. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett, and we will see you next Wednesday night on another edition of The Verdict.